So my name's Jessica, and I'm actually right now going to school at Long Beach. I'm going to school to train as a counselor and an advocate for healthy living. I've actually been in 3 programs because I was in jail, and so when I came out, they offered that. And when I barely came out, I was very vulnerable. I was in Bellflower, and I relapsed right within the month after getting out of jail, back April of 25. And Strides, because Francine, she is another coach. She came and lifted me up because I was really depressed, or I was getting bullied. So she helped me out, and then she didn't even realize I was, relapsed. I was still doing stuff while in treatment. And I mean, it's a very powerful, whatever, because we're creatures of habit. So whatever habit that we want, we're gonna do it unless you're willing to acknowledge and stop yourself. No one, I mean, everybody can help you, but you gotta be willing to help yourself. And so I used to hate running. I played tennis because I've had three knee surgeries, but I started slowly, and now after 3 knee surgeries and my knees swelling up and relapsing, Strides pulled me out of all that funk, and I've been with them for a year now. And so I would have had a longer sober date, but I relapsed, which is part of my recovery. And it happens, even I wasn't even thinking of relapse. I went to go visit my mom, and some dudes were in the bus, just like that, and it happens faster than we think, So, and for any drug of choice, including tobacco. And tobacco is really bad. Very. When I lived in Fresno, she was there with me because I had gone through a divorce, and my ex-husband is not her biological dad, so the other 2 would leave and visit him. And while they were there, I would start rolling joints and smoking in front of her, and she's like, "Oh my God, you're gonna do that?" And I was like, "I pay the bills, so it's my fault, And even though that's a big loss, and I can't I still send her stuff. I still make sure she knows that I love her, and I'm giving her the time because I grew up with my sister, and she did meth for 30 years, and she used to physically attack the whole house, mostly me, because I'm the younger sister. And so I can only see her for 20 minutes, and I drive all the way to Pasadena because she just I have a niece, and I want to see her. And so even though we don't get along, me and my older sister, she acts she's never done anything to me, but I still have that resentment, not a resentment, because I'm going to go see her, and it's mostly because I want my niece to know who her aunt is, because it's only me and her, so it's only one aunt, Tia. But it starts with something so minimal as vaping or a cigarette. And I stopped smoking cigarettes because I didn't like walking around smelling like a big cigarette. And people are like, "Oh, you smell," there's a lot of everything bad about cigarettes. Your teeth get yellow. It's just, thank you for letting me share.
I told the group before, this is my first time speaking it out loud, which I just want to acknowledge because there's so much power in speaking your truth, guys. People would look at me on my social media, they have no idea. This is really my first, I say about the last year and a half, my first time speaking and acknowledging and taking power, in that story. So 3 years ago, my life looked completely different than what it looks like now. I moved from South Carolina right after college, got a lit job in a marketing company out here. They moved me to LA. I had this dream, this vision of everything that I wanted to do, who I wanted to become. And, as I was here for about a year or so, I started to slip into addiction. And it started off really, really small. And I started off partying once a month, and that became every other weekend. And, I found myself being able to just, partake, throughout the weekends, hop back in, recover off of a 3-day bender, go back to my, my marketing job, teach my fitness classes on the side. And that cycle started to grow. Every weekend turned into twice a week, which turned into 3 times a week. Everything that started small does not stay small. I met someone and a relationship became centered around that addiction, and then we got stuck in a cycle together. Who you are and who you are around is always a direct reflection of how you feel on the inside, right? So just always mentioning that to be mindful of your circle, okay? After this relationship, my world slowly started to fall apart, and addiction didn't just make my life harder, it completely unraveled it. I lost my job, which meant losing all stability and security. I was going into work hungover, sometimes showing up halfway through my shift. Mind you, I'm teaching fitness classes, y'all. Like, off of no sleep, 3 days, my heart's beating out of my chest. I'm doing substances throughout classes, okay? So it was really to a point where I had completely just stopped holding myself to standards that I used to have. And nobody knew. That was the thing. That was the tricky part. We talk about vaping being easy to disguise. If you really are committed to hiding something, you can hide pretty much anything, right? But the danger in that is that you're also slowly dying by yourself, right? So while searching for work, someone scammed me out of $20,000. I had no money. I was just here in LA by myself, alone. Yeah, guys, it all came from being just around the wrong people and in these circles and environments that I just know did not align with who I was, right? I tried to quit many times before it actually stuck, and for a short period of time I would stop, and then I would relapse, and every single time that happened, I would lose just self-confidence and trust in myself. It affected me mentally. I became someone who couldn't even rely on my own word, and all you have is your word, okay? That's all you have in this world is who you say you are and the things that you do, right? And if those two things don't align, how can people put faith in you, right? My relationship suffered, my priorities shifted, and more than anything, I lost myself. I woke up every day feeling disconnected, not grounded, not present, and not proud of the person who I was becoming. And the hardest part about addiction is it just doesn't just affect you, it affects those around you. I lost 2 of my closest friends. They were a mother and a father, turned up all the time together. They weren't distant stories. Like you always hear about this stuff till it happens to you. And you're like, wow, these were people that I loved, people that I laughed with, people that I partied with, right? That should still be here today, but aren't. And not everyone gets a second chance. Not everyone gets to rebuild their life. And that's something that I will always carry with me. Mind you, after losing 2 of my closest friends, you would think I would stop. I didn't. I continued, still in that cycle. And it was a couple of years later that I finally started searching. There was something in me that just knew I couldn't keep going the way that I was. And I will never forget the last time that I partook in drugs and alcohol. I was sitting on my balcony, near an overdose because the substance that I got that day was laced. In that moment, I made a decision to change my life. And for me, that meant turning back to my faith and rededicating my life back to my faith. I sat on my balcony and I was like, God, you have to take this away from me. I love this. Excuse my language. I enjoy this. This is really fun, right? So start making the lows really low because the highs are high, right? And I need you to do this. That was my way of turning back. And that could look differently for everyone else, right? But for me, that's what it was. And you guys, believe it or not, as I'm sitting on this balcony, I believe with everything in me that the Lord met me right there. Not when I had it all together, not when I was trying to look like I had everything perfect, not going to church every Sunday, being the perfect person, doing all the right things. No, in the middle of my depression, the middle of my brokenness, in the depths of my addiction, He came and gave me a big ol' hug, right? And it's something I can only describe as His love, real, personal, and undeniable. He gave me a peace that surpassed all understanding, meaning I'm in the middle of addiction, in the middle of chaos, but yet I still have something in me that's like, don't hurt yourself. I have something in me that's like, go for the walk outside, go and seek hope and go and seek community, right? While another part of my body is like pulling me in the opposite direction. So it was truly a fight of flesh and spirit is how I felt, But I chose to fully surrender, That day, I was like, I'm walking away from that relationship. I'm walking away from this substance. I choose sobriety. I choose to fight for myself. And then that's when I found strides. And I literally was like, I feel like, my whole life I was doing this with my hands closed, trying to do things my way. And for me, the moment I just surrendered, it was like, bro, I don't know anything. I don't know nothing. So you have to do this and help me, right? The Lord was like, amazing, finally, I can put everything that's meant to be in your life and in your hands there, because you finally opened them up, right? So here came strides. I was searching online, literally my agent, because I'm with, I'm a fitness model and do all these things, and my agent sent me these volunteer opportunities, and I saw Strides on there. And what stood out to me was that Strides doesn't just talk about addiction, they give people real tools and stuff. Mind you, I'm building a fitness brand at the time, and they're a run club, and I'm like, okay, the pieces are adding up. So I start going to volunteer for Strides, and the way that community and connection just aligned with who I was, it felt like a bridge between who I wanted to be and who I was becoming, right? And I want to be very clear to wrap this up. This was not an easy, overnight, perfect transformation. I'm 2.5 years in my sobriety. Recovery is really freaking hard. Healing is very uncomfortable. And there are people who do not make it out. And that is the truth, okay? I'm standing here today not because addiction wasn't that bad, but because I, by the grace of God, got a second chance. And I chose to take it. That's the caveat. We're given second chances every morning we wake up. Our mercies and joy is new every day. He doesn't remember what you did yesterday or anything, right? But that day I chose to really make that decision for myself. And so since then, I've been rebuilding my life step by step. I found purpose, stability. My business is thriving. And in that surrender, God didn't just restore me. He blessed me more. He gave me back more than everything that I lost, right? He sent me my husband, who reflects the love that I really, prayed for. Like, again, the people who are around you are a reflection of what's inside of you, right? So I finally felt like I was sent someone that aligned with me, that aligned with my heart posture, that aligned with the person that I want to be in the world, right? So, found Strides, and now I do meaningful work with them, but none of that erases what addiction took from me and the people that I have lost. Once they're lost, they're gone, So if there's one thing I want you to take away, is addiction is not something you can control once it takes hold of you. As much as it will try to make you think you can, you can't. It will take more than you think you can afford to lose, and not everyone gets the opportunity to come back. So if you're struggling, please talk to someone. It's better to choose something early, choose something different as early as you can, right? Because your life is worth protecting. You are worthy of protection. Thank you so much.
And that's a bit of a long story, but I'll try to make it really short. I didn't prepare a speech. I'm just gonna roll. I used to do this all the time. I used to come speak at high schools and libraries and colleges. I taught at Otis, but as a comic book writer. So I would teach people who wanted to get into screenwriting, comic book writing, character arcs, and all these things. And I would, because I'm a writer, I'm not an artist, I'd always bring an artist with me, and so me and the artist would do it. And I used to go to Redondo Union like every year for like 7 years, and under Miss Vasquez. I don't know if she's still the teacher in this system, but and then one year, by the way, on the side of that, I was partying, I was drinking, I was doing all the things a rock and roll star is supposed to do, right? So I think it was in 2016, the night before, I had a lot of whiskey, and I didn't drink that morning, but you wouldn't know. And I taught like 6 classes, just kind of hungover and probably still buzzing out of my mind. And I didn't notice, because I was so far in my addiction, I didn't notice for about 2 or 3 years. And I called my artist friend Chris. I'm like, hey Chris, isn't it time to go back to like Miss Vasquez's class and teach again? She, like last 6 years, 7 years. He's like, yeah, you just now noticed she hasn't called you back? I'm like, what? No. He's like, don't you remember the last time? I'm like, yeah, we did, it's fine. He's like, no, you. So he reminded me how bad I smelled. I'd like to think I kept it together. I'd like to think I was a functional alcoholic, as we like to call ourselves. But really, when now, again, here talking to you guys sober, looking at that, I'm like, oh my God, how did I even let myself get there, And my drug of choice is alcohol. But I want to talk a little bit about vaping as well, because I understand, how many of you guys vape? Teacher will look away. Anybody here from Strides vape? No. All right. I'm not a narc. I promise.
100%.
You guys vape? You guys don't vape, do you?
I won't look.
All right. Well, check this out.
We know.
Here's the thing about vaping, and I remember when you were speaking, because like cigarettes, if you smoke cigarettes or if you smoke weed, like, and you walk into a room, we know if you just had a cigarette or weed, right? But if you vape, how do we know? I guess they have little signals in the bathrooms and stuff. But the danger of vape is that it is so kind of stealthy. And they used to market it to you guys with all these fruity, fun flavors and all that stuff. I don't think they do that anymore. But the thing about vaping is it just kind of normalizes something that's already bad for you anyway. It's a new thing and just a different package. And what we want to really be mindful of is the thinking of addiction. Like, I moved to California from North Carolina wanting to be a famous, successful comic book writer. And here I was on a circuit, doing conventions and talking to schools and being successful enough. I was getting invited back and back. And then when I stopped getting invited, I was so messed up I didn't even notice for 2 years. I'm like, oh, they're not calling me anymore. And vaping can lead to other things, but vaping in and of itself isn't great either. I just lost my uncle April 4th to cancer, and it started as lung cancer. And he smoked cigarettes for like as long as I've ever known him. And he got a hernia, and the smoking made him cough, so he transitioned to vaping. Now, I don't know, this is just a sneaky suspicion, but about 2 years after he transitioned to vaping, he started having things in his mouth, and then he started having things in his lungs. Smoking in itself is bad for you, but vaping is like synthesized nicotine. There's nothing natural about it. So just think about these things. Nowadays when I sit down with the family at Thanksgiving, I'm still friends with my ex-wife. There's bottles of wine around me. There's everybody, and it's just normal to drink at Thanksgiving. But I'm not normal in my drinking, so I know that I can't. And it's not that it's prohibited and I don't even look at it like that. It's like I get not to now. And with Strides, just to kind of bring it full circle, I got so bad that I went to treatment. I went to a 90-day treatment program for my alcoholism. And Leslie and the Strides coaches would show up every Sunday. And I'm not Mr. Fitness, you can tell, right? But what I loved about Strides was it gave me an opportunity to get out of the place I was in and go walk for 3 hours, 2 hours, and it broke the rut of my routine. Does that make sense? Like, because we all get in these routines, but you probably know what you're doing tomorrow morning, right? You probably getting up and going to school, maybe? No. We don't have Saturday morning. It's Friday, I forgot. But what are you doing tomorrow morning?
I don't know.
Sleeping in.
You don't know? You're gonna sleep in? Yeah, you earned it. But if you sleep in every day, that's what I did during COVID. That was when I really learned about alcohol. And I just fell into a rut. And you want to get it just a nice, fun, healthy routine. Connection is the opposite of addiction. These are all the little hip things they say in this, but it's all true. It all has a truth to it. So I've talked long enough. I want to introduce my friend Sean. Last time I was in a room with this guy, I think there was probably bottles of booze involved. And now we're both here, so
Wow.
There you go.
You smell great today.
Thank you.
All right. Question, you don't have to answer it. Just think about it. Is there anyone in your life or yourself that has some sort of addiction that you can think of? When you think of that, what do you think of when you think of addiction? What did he talk about? Alcohol? Okay. I'll write it down. Alcohol. Okay. What else? Now that we've set it up.
Or like what different things you can be
Yeah.
addicted to?
For sure. Yeah.
Drugs.
Okay, yeah, sure. Drugs. And then there is
Food.
Thank you. Yeah, with drugs, there's, weed, coke, all that stuff. Vaping, we talked about.
People, honestly.
People. Yeah.
Addicted to people.
Video games, yeah. So
Got a hand back here, Sean.
we got a hand?
Your phone.
Oh, that's really good. That's good.
Did you read my script? That's the perfect segue. So, perfect. Let me ask you a question, the whole group. Do your phones get taken away while you're at school? Yes. They do? No? Okay. For those whose phones do get taken away, what's the feeling like when you get it taken away versus at 3 o'clock when you get out of school?
We got it too.
At 2 o'clock? All right, at 2 o'clock, what happens when you get your phone back? What does it feel like? Good?
I
Okay.
guess. I mean,
Relief? Freedom, you're stoked, right? Leading up to that, is there like a little anxiety, like, I'm going to check my Instagram, TikTok?
Just like jittery.
No? Jittery? Okay, yeah. So, that's kind of part of addiction, is it's grabbed onto you so much that that's become your priority. So to kind of bring it back a little bit, I'm a Redondo alumni, as they said. I had friends that went to this one. It was called Shores, about 20-some years ago. One of which was a musician friend of mine. I'm a musician. He played bass in a band with me. He died of a heroin overdose at 25. And so, yeah, coming here was cool just because it's like coming back home, because I'm a South Bay kid. And I never got into drugs, maybe the way sort of Mike's talked about. Yes, we've had fun, but I never sort of succumbed to addiction in the sense that we've been talking about. However, I do call myself an addict because addiction does come in so many forms. This list can go on forever. And growing up, I had parents who were addicts. One was a alcohol and pill addict, the other was a gambling addict. Gambling?
Oh.
Yeah. So you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna put it here too. Which is also more prevalent now because there's those new apps. Yeah. So be mindful of that. What happened when I was a kid is my needs were unmet. When we're young and our parents can't give us what we want, whether that's a hug, encouragement, there's a pain involved. And so there's this theory about addiction is that what it's doing is masking some sort of pain, some sort of uncomfortable feeling. And that's why I bring up the idea of phones, because you might not be addicted to crack or alcohol or anything right now, but those phones, it has the same sort of component of addiction. The pain, what's that pain? I'm uncomfortable, why am I uncomfortable? So that's kind of what I want to ask everybody. When you're uncomfortable, what does that feel like? Why are you uncomfortable? Why do you need to check your phone? Why do you need to hit that vape? And I'm curious if anyone just can share a feeling if they have had that experience.
It's like dopamine.
Exactly, yeah, it is a dopamine hit. I can do a whole series about dopamine, but what happens is when we get, especially when we post on TikTok or Instagram, when we get those likes and they keep coming, we're like, fuck yeah, that's a like. Sorry. But what happens is there's a deficit. We get so much of that dopamine that we never get it back, and so we just need more and more and more and more. So we're just uncomfortable without it. So when we're in class and we're learning something, teacher's talking to us, we're thinking about how many likes am I getting right now? And so that uncomfortable feeling manifests itself in that way. So, yeah. Behind that, though, there's also some sort of pain. So what's that uncomfortability? Were your needs unmet? Why does this like on Instagram matter so much? It's all to say, I'm going in many different directions here, but I want to kind of bring it back around. Be curious. If you want to hit that vape, grab your phone, take a drink of alcohol, hit weed, okay, fine. But what's going on behind that? Why are you doing it? Is there pain you're trying to mask? Are you uncomfortable? Are you feeling horrible? Just be curious and be kind to yourself and have some self-compassion and see, without awareness, you might not need that thing after all. And because we're Strides, we're a running group, we found other adaptive behaviors to help with that pain, to cope with that uncomfortability. I like to run. That's become my new addiction, is running. Even when I hurt myself, I'm still running. But it's different than being uncomfortable and wanting to have a drink or whatever. So, self-compassion, curiosity, and finding a more adaptive approach to sort of work with that uncomfortable feeling. So, that's all I got. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank the other two people who already spoke. Jessica, thank you for your vulnerability. One of the first things I learned in recovery is that the coolest thing about getting clean is that you get your feelings back, and the worst thing about getting clean is that you get your feelings back. So thank you for that. Like, I get it. A little bit about me. I have 12 and a half years clean. This program is very much part of my story. I did attend a continuing education program. I'm a foster kid from Massachusetts. And so these worlds are, speaking of getting emotional, these worlds are really merging for me. I came to Strides in Recovery 3.5 years ago because I got a spinal injury, but through my recovery in the last 12.5 years, and really a lot longer than that. I went to rehab in 2005. That was 21 years ago. So it took me 21 years to get 12 years clean. You do the math. It's a journey is my point in saying that. I'm not saying that I'm necessarily proud of relapse being a part of my story, but I understand that this recovery is about being persistently patient. And Strides was such a huge staple in my life because after my injury, I'd been clean for many years, and all of a sudden I had to reacclimate to a physical injury. I had to slow down. I couldn't push myself in the way that I wanted to, and I realized that the principles of getting clean came from that value of being persistently patient. And I feel really honored to be here and to speak to you guys because I understand, like, seeing you guys in the back row, the four of you, like, that was my experience when I went through the foster care system. I went into the foster care system when I was 14 years old. I was displaced at 14. I actually wrote a solo show about my journey through the foster care system as a teenager, and the reason why that has been such a huge part of my experience in my recovery is that 82% of foster kids that are adopted are under the age of 12, and there's this no man's land of those of us that are teenagers where the ability for us to get placed, people being able to see that we are sort of angry and we're messy and we're vaping and we're doing crazy stuff, but you know what, I encourage you to lean into observing this stage in your life because it's important. You know, I didn't plan a speech. I didn't know what I would really walk into, but that's part of being a foster kid. You actually never know what you're going to walk into. I had a purple backpack that's a staple of my show that I never unpacked for the 4 years that I was in the foster care system. I lived in 8 different homes. I went to 4 different high schools. I did this program many different times in many different towns in Massachusetts. And the thing that honestly was consistent for me at that time was being able to relate to my peers through using. And I'm not saying that to advocate for addiction in any way, shape, or form, but I say it so that you are gentle on yourself. It wasn't sustainable. I learned that in my experience, it's almost like a chicken and an egg. You've probably heard this analogy before, but for a long time, right, the chicken needs to be in the egg. It needs the embryonic fluid, and it's what allows it to become a chicken. But at some point, that chicken has to hatch from the egg or it will die inside the egg. It needs to expand. And that's what addiction was for me. It helped me survive when I was in the foster care system. But it got to the point where I could no longer sustain an actual lifestyle. I couldn't grow. But honestly, what helped me is other people sharing their experience, strength, and hope instead of lecturing me about what I should and shouldn't be doing. That's what resonated for me. I heard that message instead of, we all know vaping is bad. We all know addiction is bad. It's not a good idea. And so, but I had to walk through that to really understand that it wasn't a good idea for me. And it became my pull to purpose with my solo show and my performing. I'm also a stand-up comic, which honestly, I always say that laughter is what prevented my pain from scarring, and it's because I went through this journey and it allowed me to be able to laugh about it because I could look back on myself in retrospect and understand why it didn't work for me, you know? And so I guess, honestly, my only message is remain teachable. It's okay if you don't get it right, you know, allow yourself to be the observer of other people's experience. Also be gentle on yourself on the days that you don't want to get up and do something and you make yourself show up anyway. In this past year, in full transparency, one of the most pivotal moments for me in my relationship with Strides in Recovery is last year, my biological mom died of ovarian cancer. And I share this story because my mother and I were estranged for 25 years. We reconnected in my 30s. And in the last 9 days of her life, I was with her by her side. I administered her morphine as a recovering addict. This crazy addict helped my mother die with dignity because of this program. And we don't always know how a program is going to directly correlate. Like, it's a running group. You wouldn't necessarily think a running group would help my mother die, but like, it did, because it taught me how to be present, how to show up a day at a time when it was really messy. I've met some really gnarly, amazing people on the course each week that are so incredibly different than me, that have lived such a different experience. But what I realize is that we all just want to be seen. That's really like the human condition. We just fully want to be seen. And when we hold the space for other people in all of their messiness, my mother was not good to me. I went into the foster care system because my mother pushed me out of a moving car when I was 13 years old. And I still was by that woman's bedside when she died, because this program taught me to forgive and to release these resentments. And I'm not saying this at all to be professorial, but I'm saying it that you don't have to figure all of this out in the room. I had no idea that when I started this journey of recovery, that in 2005, my mother was going to rapidly die, and that all of the tools to help her die with dignity were in me, simply because I woke up each morning and said, okay, let's do this. So I don't know if I was kind of all over the place, but my hope is that you guys love yourselves, that you're gentle with yourselves, and on the days that you don't love yourself, you show up anyway, and be your beautiful, fallible, awesome human selves. Woo.